and safeguards for all of our information.
I figure we can take a question or two before we move to our last clip.
Yes, sir. Can they get a warrant to go back in time and look at something that's been reported? And how far in the future do you think telephone companies have to save information, or do they have it at all?
They don't have to, but so the question was, can the government get records of your location from the phone company, and exactly what kind of records do the phone companies have? The answers are yes, and we are not sure. I'll start with the second part of the question first. Phone companies certainly log the cell tower that your call is routed through at the beginning and end of every call. The question is, what else do they store? The answer is we don't know exactly, and the companies aren't very forthcoming about what else they have. Depending on whether you use location-based services, they may have quite detailed GPS-based or cell tower triangulation data about your past location. This is actually an issue that we are currently litigating. I argued in front of the Third Circuit in February about what the appropriate standard should be if the government wants to obtain historical cell site data or other location data about your cell phone, and we're still waiting on a decision there. Our argument, of course, is that a warrant should be required, that the Fourth Amendment requires a warrant, and the statute that governs this area allows courts to require a warrant. But so there's a big transparency problem here in terms of knowing exactly what the companies have. They certainly don't have an obligation to store that data for the assistance of law enforcement. However, we have seen evidence of company retention of data because they were paid by the government, provided the funds to build the data centers to store the data just to help the government out voluntarily. And so I would not be surprised if the major carriers have location data stretching back the past 10 years or so. But we honestly don't know. The best resource I've seen lately on this is from a security researcher named Matt Blaze, who testified to Congress, the House Judiciary Committee's Constitution Subcommittee, about this. And his basic conclusion was they are storing everything they can, and that data is getting more accurate by the day, such that triangulation data derived from cell towers is getting more and more accurate to the extent that it will soon, if it does not already, match the accuracy of GPS. So we are looking at huge storehouses of location data tied to your cell phone, available from the providers under currently uncertain legal standards.
And who, as Kevin touched on, who has this information is becoming increasingly diffuse as there are location-based services that are other types of third parties. So if you are using location-based services, mapping service, friend-finding services, location-based services that are to find the restaurants here in Vegas, those are all different entities that may be collecting vast amounts of information, storing it for indeterminate times, disclosing it for indeterminate reasons. So if anyone's actually read some of those privacy policies, they're pretty scary, and we've been delving into that quite a bit. As Kevin mentioned, there was a hearing in Congress very recently on this issue, and since it is a focus of what we're doing legislatively, we've really been trying to investigate some of these issues further. So if any of you work in that area and would like to help us to understand more, I'm sure Kevin and I would love to chat with you. We have one more question back there, and then we'll go to the...
This is related to the comments that were just made. What's the integrity of that data? What's the chain of custody? I mean, what's the ability to validate that the producer of this information isn't simply manufactured?
I don't have a good answer for that. I mean, I've not been directly involved in, say, criminal cases where this data has been introduced against a criminal defendant. Certainly, often criminal defendants will try to argue that the data is imprecise, which is funny because the government also likes to argue that the data is imprecise because that strengthens their argument that the Fourth Amendment doesn't protect it. I mean, chain of custody, you have someone from the phone company come in and testify, this is the data that we have that was collected when these calls were made. There you go. I mean, I'm not sure I mean, if someone introduced some evidence to indict that person to say, to show that it was fabricated, I guess that would be an issue. But I've never seen an instance of that.
They've got so much data, they don't have to fabricate anything. So, was there one more, and then we'll take the last clip?
One question. Revisiting the Minority Report for a second, how often does law enforcement stand behind the interest of public safety, for the containment team, and actually evacuate and ID all the people in the building? Is that unreasonable?
I think it would depend on the circumstances, right? I mean, reasonableness is a very iffy standard, so it would depend on the situation, it would depend on the reasons, it would depend on, what that identification actually was, the limits to that. But I think that we'd have to look at it on a fact-by-fact basis.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, there certainly is an exception to the Fourth Amendment's warrant requirement for exigent circumstances, where there are legitimate emergencies where either evidence is about to be destroyed, and if you go get a warrant, it'll be too late, or where someone's life is at risk. But it would be a very, as most things, rather fact-specific, case-by-case kind of thing. We lawyers love to say that.
Yes, exactly. Should we do the next one?
Yeah, one more clip.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Beautiful, unethical, dangerous. You've turned every cell phone in Gotham into a microphone.
And a high-frequency generator receiver.
You took my sonar concept and applied it to every phone in the city. With half the city feeding you sonar, you can image all of Gotham. This is wrong.
I've got to find this man, Lucius.
At what cost?
The database is now key encrypted. It can only be accessed by one person.
This is too much power for one person.
That's why I gave it to you. Only you can use it.
Spying on 30 million people isn't part of my job description.
This is an audio sample. If he talks within range of any phone in the city, you can triangulate his position.
I'll help you this one time. But consider this my resignation. As long as this machine is at Wayne Enterprises, I won't be.
Morgan Freeman.
You see, if only Morgan Freeman existed in real life.
That's right.
We could use any surveillance technology we wanted with the assurance that it wouldn't be abused. But unfortunately, Morgan Freeman doesn't exist. You know what I mean. Lucius Fox doesn't exist, whatever. The Morgan Freeman image on film, he played God, amongst others. But anyway, this is a really interesting clip for a lot of reasons. First off, because it raises this ethical issue of how much power is too much power, and how do we create checks and balances to ensure that these powers are not abused. And, the closest we do have to Morgan Freeman is judges. He really ought to play a judge. Has anyone ever seen, has Morgan Freeman played a judge in anything? Oh, well, anyway. So, it's very important to us, the civil libertarians, that judges be in the loop whenever invasive technologies like this are used. This is also interesting because it's a nice mix of real technology and, I think, crazy, stupid technology. The technology of remotely turning on your microphone on your cell phone to use it as a bug, this gentleman brought that up earlier. This is actually I don't want to say routine law enforcement technique, but we have certainly seen it in particular in organized crime investigations where they will, as they should, get a wiretap order and with the phone company's assistance, turn on the mic of your cell phone. I think this can also be done with landlines.
And in-car assistance systems.
Yes, we've also seen this in OnStar type emergency car assistance systems. So if you have a mic connected to a network, someone can own it, and that's just the reality of it. Same with video cameras, as we most recently saw in the Lower Merion School District in Pennsylvania, where school officials had installed security software on school-issued laptops and were activating the cameras on those laptops when the students had brought the laptops home. I'm curious Well, and first off, crazy stupid technology. There's no way Batman could have taken over all of these phones without totally killing the bandwidth for all of these providers. These providers would know this was happening and figure it out and stop it. I really don't think it would have been possible. But the turning on the mic thing is basically possible. The voice recognition thing is basically possible. What I don't know is this crazy sonar thing possible at all?
No, I've seen where people have used the passive radio frequencies and have stuff bouncing around in the city and being able to detect things moving through it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a passive radar just based on all radio waves and that kind of stuff.
So a hint of plausibility here.
So DEFCON challenge for next year.
Build it.
Build it and we will come.
Indeed. Or we'll defend the people who
That's
build
right,
it.
exactly.
We'll flip a coin to figure it out. But anyway, so I think that's our last clip. We have 7 more minutes, so we'll take a few questions, but we also want to get your suggestions on what movies or scenes we might want to include next time we do this sort of
we're not
presentation.
professional, movie critics. We do this on our side time, so we definitely want your thoughts. And I think that this last clip also brings up really important things that, it may be technologically possible or impossible. It may be legal or illegal. But what's really important is for us as a society to decide if that's the world we want to live in and to push back against these things, because we may have to litigate something for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, but if there may be more, what are we up to, 6 on NSA spying?
Let's not dwell.
But, there are really a lot of opportunities for the public to push and make sure that these things don't actually get to the light of day, and those are things that we really try and hopefully we'll get your help on. So we have a bunch of questions. So let's
one
take
more thing, though. I have one bit of great trivia. I want a couple of people to guess. If a class action attorney found out what Bruce Wayne did there, how much money do you think he'd be liable for under the Wiretap Act? I'll take 3 guesses. Well, no. Yes, but I would like. I'm looking for guesses here. How much would this cost Bruce Wayne if he got sued?
And the person closest gets the last Constitution and a bunch of gummy bears.
Okay, I want a number here. Okay, fine. I'll just give you the number: $300 billion. $300 billion, and that's 30 million felonies. You'll notice Lucius Fox mentioned spying on 300 million people. So anyway,
Right,
10,
so we don't
10
encourage
grand.
you to build this. No.
Yeah. So okay, questions.
As judges and politicians are becoming younger because no one's working age, do you notice a significant change in the understanding of actually what's going on in the real world?
Well, the real secret is that most decisions are made by the clerks.
Made by, but
informed by the clerks. So I think that a lot more clerks are understanding these issues and trying to educate judges about these things.
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult when you're dealing with a judge or a politician who, say, has to have someone print out their email for them, if they even have an email account, to get them to understand how society at large relies on email for private communication. So I do think that younger jurists have a better grasp of these issues, but I don't want to be ageist at all. We've certainly seen good opinions from older judges.
Because it's not just the understanding, it's the understanding of the context for society as well. So they may understand the technology, but they have to understand, the big picture. So I think that it takes both sides of that.
But yeah, we're often praying that the clerks will keep the judges updated on what the real world is like. I'll leave it to you.
Oh.
So there's precedent for using location data from cell phones to say that this person was there at the scene of the crime. I'm assuming
Yes.
I'm assuming it's circumstantial evidence. Do they also use the cell phone data, say, as an alibi?
Absolutely. So the question was, presuming that prosecutions often use cell phone data to establish your presence at a crime scene, do defendants use that same data to establish an alibi to show that they were not? And the answer is absolutely yes. This data is becoming more widely used by both prosecutions and defense.
And the same thing with video surveillance footage. We actually worked on this in San Francisco, and the public defenders actually wanted a